And I think sometimes that's scary to like have some sort of realization that, okay, we're predicting based off of public health data that you're going to need care in 10 years and it's going to cost this much. And that number gets real scary real fast because most people don't realize it's not covered. It is not a Medicare coverage. It is an out-of-pocket expense. But there's a lot of great ways to cover that and to get additional care. And just having that available to you and that information helps both your family, yourself, and if you do have a fiduciary or somebody professional in your life, make better decisions about what that's going to look like for you.
Welcome to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. If you ever asked, how do I protect myself and those I love if something unexpected happened to me? You're in the right place. I'm your host, Niki Weiss, and together we'll explore how to protect yourself in a world where both your physical and digital legacy leave a lasting impact. And welcome back to another episode of the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. My guest today is Lindsay Friedman. And Lindsay, you are an expert in this caregiving space. And for most people, they don't realize that caregiving, it's an epidemic today. So welcome to the show, and please tell us how you got here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you and work with you over this past period of time. So yes, I'm Lindsay Friedman. I'm the founder of CareBloom and LT Care Nav. And I got here because I have been both a professional and a family caregiver. So right out of high school, I actually went into working with memory care and hospice. So into your space early on, and really learned so much about what it's like to care for somebody, what it's like to support a family. And there's so many pieces that go into both of those things. I got to watch a lot of families not know what to do, the confusion, the sadness, the panic, the crisis, because there was never a great plan in place. And what I learned as I got older and I became a family caregiver to my grandmother was I was in the exact same place I saw those people. And I woke up and I went, man, this is why they were there. Like, this is hard. You and I've talked, it's financial, it's legal, it's physical, it's like you become a doctor, a lawyer, a financial planner, a Uber driver, a chef, right? You become so many things when you are a caregiver. And nobody is prepared for this, including myself, who worked as a professional caregiver. It was like a great big smack in the face. And so, having had a bit of a technology background, actually after my experience with my grandma, what I realized was that caregivers need support. And my first jump into that was CareBloom, which is a caregiver support tool because everybody needs a break in the day. And if you don't have that, you are going to go mad. And so created CareBloom as something that would allow a caregiver to inexpensively take a moment for themselves. And then LT Care Nav kind of grew out of my experience of installing CareBlooms into homes. As how was I going to handle, like, this is great to take a breather, but what we really need to do is we really need to plan ahead. That is how we avoid becoming that overwhelmed caregiver to begin with. So I created a platform with all the questions and how do I help you plan ahead so you don't have to get into that crisis caregiving mode.
So, Lindsay, because caregiving is so indiscriminate, it really is not age specific. It really is situational. Where do you see in this epidemic of caregiving the population that needs it most?
So it's interesting because there's been a shift. I used to see caregivers were pretty much more women who had already just raised their children and then starting to take care of their parents. What had happened is people started having children later. Caregivers are now getting a little bit younger, and that's where we talk about that sandwich generation. They're now stuck between I am raising children and I am helping my parents. And I love that you call it this panini generation, and because it does, it gets all squished together. And actually, I've even heard people call it a club sandwich, whereas like grandparents are still alive because of longevity, right? And mom and dad are starting to need to care, and then now you need to help take care of both, and you have children, right? So now we're this,
Four generations.
right, and we're in this big sloppy sandwich that it's hard to get your mouth around, and it's hard to get your brain to wrap around. And that's where the truth of the matter is caregivers now can be very young. I was in my 30s. We can talk about situations where people have their spouses who are in their 30s who are becoming caregivers. And truth of the matter is that's a really hard time in life where you still want to explore and be young, and now you have this thrown on you. And then seeing caregivers up into their 70s because their parents are living until their 90s and hundreds. And now you have people who have slowed down who are now struggling to caregive because they're aging as well. So it is covering a spectrum. It is, as you said, it is an epidemic, and it is going to hit every single person in this country at some point.
Now, we talk about caregiving as though it's specifically like a family member that's going to be caregiving for you. What's the situation when someone's like maybe they don't have family or they're estranged from their family? Then what are their options?
So for those folks, I would tell you, for all these solo agers, as hard it is you don't want to plan. And it's, I think, even harder when you don't have a support system to plan with, because a lot of people are like, well, I have no one to give it to anyway, right? Like, you're the person who really needs to plan, because you're going to wake up one day and not be able to get out of bed or not be able to shower yourself, and you're not going to have somebody to call to lean back on. So when you think about solo aging, do you have a really good friend? If not, if you don't have somebody who doesn't have to be an immediate family who's in your direct circle who's going to help you, you need to think about financially what that's going to look like. Assisted living, having home care, having a fiduciary come in place to make these decisions for you. But for solo agers, it's even more important that you have a plan for your own well-being.
And to start having those conversations. I mean, I have some solo ager clients who have nieces and nephews that they just aren't close with, but they could potentially, if having the right conversation, be able to support them versus having to go out and hire a professional fiduciary. So some of our listeners might not know what a professional fiduciary is. Do you have a 101 explanation we can share with them?
I am not a fiduciary. We can do it quickly. It's somebody who can help you make all these decisions. Sort of like it's an adult-centered daughter, but they have a little bit higher of a skill set to actually do the tasks you're appointing them to do, right? You're going to get better guidance on your wills and making sure they're going to have everything, all your ducks in a row, like an adult son or daughter would do. And that's kind of how I always explain it, because if not, it feels kind of sterile and cold.
And a professional fiduciary, just so everyone is clear, they're licensed professionals, right? They have to go through a license, like a state licensing vetting process, right? Just like an attorney does. And they're tested and tracked, and the government actually makes sure that they are fiduciary, which means that you're doing right by that person, right? They're doing it for a fee, but at the same time, their service that they're providing is that they are doing what is in your best interest. And so for solo agers or people that don't have a trustful or solid traditional family background, the fiduciary, if they're assigned to a particular person, how can they use your services as well?
So for me, what we do at LT Care Nav is we actually do really beautiful long-term care planning. We use AI, so we allow it to be really private. So anyone who's listening, if you're not sure where to start, come to the site. We have different assessments. Pick the one that fits you, fill out a few questions, and we can get you on your way to a full plan. And we can do it very privately. And then if you do have a fiduciary, or if you don't, our plans allow you to make some really great decisions. So we really recommend you take your plan, you share it with your family. If you are alone, you share it with your fiduciary, and you have that conversation of like, you know what, it looks like I am going to need care. It's going to cost me about this much. What are my options? And I think sometimes that's scary to like have some sort of realization that, okay, we're predicting based off of public health data that you're going to need care in 10 years and it's going to cost this much. And that number gets real scary real fast because most people don't realize it's not covered. It is not a Medicare coverage. It is an out-of-pocket expense. But there's a lot of great ways to cover that and to get additional care. And just having that available to you and that information helps both your family, yourself, and if you do have a fiduciary or somebody professional in your life, make better decisions about what that's going to look like for you.
So let's talk about the costs. Like, are people really sticker shock right now on what's involved in long-term care?
Everybody's sticker shocked. Like, so I know this and I've been here and I sometimes still see the numbers and I'm a little sticker shocked, even though I see them because they're just big numbers. Depending on where you live and the type of care, you know, on the low end, you're looking at a couple $1,000s a month for just a handful of hours of home care. You could be looking up to $15,000 a month of just care costs. And it's out of pocket. That's cash that you're going to spend.
And care, I mean, when we talk about care, we're talking about bathing, toileting, feeding, right? Dispensing medication, like just making sure that someone's safe to be, even if they're in their own home. Like, the care can cost anywhere from, I mean, I've seen as low as $35 an hour, maybe, right? And that might be under the table, all the way up. Oh my gosh, I had a friend whose mother, it was 8 years that she had Alzheimer's, and they paid $12,000 a month to be in a facility. And then because they wanted her to have, and they could afford it, the one-on-one care, an additional person by her side for 12 hours a day, and an additional $8,000 a month.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because that the person who was sitting next to her for $8,000 a month, she wasn't getting that $8,000.
No.
Like, it's like the organization and then the insurance, like, so $20,000 a month to take care of somebody who is incapacitated.
Yep.
I mean, how do we plan for that? Or, and that's on the high end. So let's say $3,000 a month if someone is in an assisted care facility or still living independently, but just needs someone to come in and check in on them.
So, and the truth is that's still a ton of money, especially for where we are in our country today. I mean, how do we prepare for it? Well, the truth is there's a lot of great ways to prepare for it if you plan ahead. There are financial tools and vehicles and asset protection and all of these great opportunities that don't hurt too badly for like monthly premiums that will ensure that that is all covered, 100% covered. Problem is most people haven't planned. And when you are in it, when you have dove headfirst into the world of needing care, your options are fewer, much fewer. Right? Like, and that is why there's so many family caregivers, because there were so many people who didn't plan.
Right.
And there are some other options. You talk about Medicaid, right? That is an option. There are ways to get to Medicaid safely. Like, I've had people say, like, listen, it doesn't matter how much I plan. I'm not making enough to to put money aside. I don't have anything for an annuity. I can't buy long-term care insurance. Okay. So if that is the case, there are options for you to protect your assets, but you have to do it in plenty of time. There is a look back period, but to get into all this would be extensive, but there's a look back period. They can come and they can take your house like you and I've talked about. There are ways to protect these things so you can still get the care you need. And it's all about having options. The earlier you plan, the more options you have. And so that's really what I want to see, a change in how we're looking at aging. We should be able to enjoy those last years of life. They should not be panic stricken. They should not be counting pennies. And so what does that look like? It looks like having a good plan at 40.
And then you iterate that plan. right?
Yeah,
It's like what life looks like at 40 is going to look different each decade as we move on. And the people in our lives, right? Who's going to take care of me today might not be that person who takes care of me tomorrow.
absolutely.
But we have to have those conversations. So, do you have recommendations on how people can, if they know that they're going to be a caregiver, and like statistically, we know that it's usually the eldest daughter, right? I mean, statistically, not always. And it's interesting, my neighbor, it's actually the daughter-in-law. So it's the eldest son's wife who's taking care of the parents who are in their late 80s, early 90s. And so it's usually women, not always. It's more of a personality thing. But how can we as knowing that we're going to be the caregiver? I mean, did you know you were going to be the caregiver for your grandmother?
So I have so yeah, so I knew that was going to happen for me. And it was something I wanted to do. So besides having that background and being the caregiver, I actually had an injury when I had my daughter. And so I couldn't walk. I actually got to be a care recipient for a couple years. Totally gave me a different perspective. But my grandma came and sat with me when I couldn't do much for almost every day. And and she would bring me food, and she was doing all of that for me. Actually, she wasn't driving at the time, so my mom, who stopped driving shortly thereafter because my mom has MS, but somebody was making sure, and she came and she did companion care for me because I was sad and I had a new baby, and so it really did for me. It was when my grandma needs this, I'm going to do this for her.
So it was just a commitment. You knew. I mean, I felt that way about my mother too. I always knew I would take care of my mother. When she got old, I didn't realize that she was going to be old at 50, right? And then she ended up passing away. Um, Now that I'm a mother, I jokingly, but make it very clear to my kids that I'm like, look, I took care of you the first 25 years. You're going to take care of me the last 25 years. And so at least we've had that conversation in a way. But now that I'm looking at 60, they realize like this is becoming more of a reality. And so we're starting to have those conversations of what I would like and what my husband would like and what are the needs and how do we start planning and identifying who are going to take on those roles. But they're hard conversations for most people to have. So do you have recommendations on how people can start having those difficult conversations with their loved ones?
Yeah, so I wrote a book called The Questions That Matter, and it's 82 of the questions that you should definitely have a conversation about. And so the book is written into talking about how to have the conversation with yourself first, because that's the most important thing. As the person who's going to age and as a potential caregiver, these are conversations that you need to lay out for yourself. Like, what do I want as I age, or what do I or don't I want in a caregiving experience? Because I tell everybody it is okay to be like, hey, I'm not going to be your caregiver. That is okay. Even as a child, like, yes, did your parents do it for you? But that's called parenting, right? So as an adult child, you can say, I'm not going to be doing this job. I don't feel comfortable showering you. I don't feel comfortable having access to your money. You are allowed to feel these things about this, but what you have to do is not say like, I'm done. Don't throw your hands up and walk away and be like, not my problem. Say, listen, mom, I'm not comfortable doing these things, so let's talk about how we're going to make sure it's accomplished. Right? Like that, those are the conversations you can have, and you don't have to feel guilty about not being the person who can give hands-on care or be there.
And that's where, LT Care Nav really can help people build those conversations,
Yeah.
make those decisions, and realize that there are tools and other resources out there so they can gently offboard their responsibility and make sure that there's a good, solid plan in place.
Yeah, and really knowing what that looks like. I'm a caregiver at heart, right? Like I know this, and I know that for my parents, I can go in and happily give my mom a shower. I can change her. I can toilet her. I love my dad. I don't want to do like it. I don't want it to have to fall on me for that because that'll be embarrassing for him. I know it will be. And it's going to be uncomfortable for me because that's how we were raised. My dad is like, my dad, I don't think I've ever not seen him in like sweatpants, right? My dad is like super modest, and I just wouldn't want to do that job. And it's not about not loving him any less, right? So these are the things that really need to be looked at. And so I really want to work with caregivers to say, like, there are different capacities of caring, and sometimes caring looks like acknowledging that you are not going to do it.
And that's the decision.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, listen, this was an amazing conversation. And so do you have one or two takeaways that our listeners can really start to think about or take action on today?
Yeah, I think I have a few because it depends who we talk to. If you're the person who you know are going to be aging, really decide what you want. What does life look like to you? What does dignity look like to you? What does aging look like to you? And start to put those pieces in place, right? We plan for the career we want. We plan for the home we want. We plan all of these things. Plan for the aging experience that you want. And then when it comes to family caregiving, if you are already there, know that you are not alone. Find support. You are allowed to have bad days. You probably have a lot of them, but there are people out here to support you. And for those who think they're going to be caregivers, also sit down, talk to mom or dad or whoever that person will be, and talk about what that experience is going to be like for you and for them.
And then for people that want to connect with you, learn more about your platform and your services, best place to find you.
So if you go to ltcarenav.com/podcast, we're giving away 25% off of CareBloom to help family caregivers. We're also giving away a free ebook, and you can create your free long-term care plan.
So that's LT Care Nav, NAV.com.
Correct.
Awesome. And with that, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your expertise and passion for caregiving and taking care of people today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. I hope this conversation inspired you to take control and plan for the inevitable to protect yourself and those you leave behind. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at digitallegacypodcast.com. Remember, life is full of surprises. What happens after you die shouldn't be. So keep your passwords safe and your playbook up to date.